Let's start this discussion by talking about the obvious things that people always point out, which I'm not sure they understand are very obvious. If you are worried about crewing your ship, and that is a big deal to you, get the Perseus. Done. Minimum crew of 6, maximum crew of 6. You can turn the video off now because I'm not certain anything can convince people who are worried about crewing ships that it won't be as big of an issue as they think. All right, I waited. Still here? All right, let's talk about another obvious thing on the other side. The Polaris has a hangar, a medbed, and a brig for prisoners. Even if just one of those are essential to you, get the Polaris. Done. Perseus has none of those, and at best might get a brig if we're lucky, but we won't be lucky, so get a Polaris. All right, still here? Good. Now we can get down to brass tacks without talking about facilities and crew requirements. For the rest of the video, we'll assume we have a crew of 6 people for both ships to be fair to both. If you're still here, that means those things aren't deal breakers because you're probably more worried about role and fighting capabilities. Let's talk about toughness first, because most folks say the Perseus defeats the Polaris as far as defense, but I'm not so certain it's such an open and shut case. We're talking 1 capital shield and light military armor versus 2 large shields and heavy military armor. When we talk about shields, one of the things I've learned that people get confused about is that multiple shields don't mean multiple layers. It means each shield only covers a section of the ship, whether that be a quadrant or front or back. So 1 capital shield is exponentially stronger than 2 large shields. Let's talk regeneration. Shields regenerate by themselves, given enough time. Hulls don't regenerate. At best, they can be patched with on-site repairs, and that doesn't necessarily mean the hull strength will regenerate so much as it will be a hole that was filled. Remember that these are both huge ships, so they aren't necessarily dodging damage so much as they would be tanking it. So shield regen will be difficult to do in such gigantic ships. The greatest in-game ship hull HP currently in game is 364,000, and that's a military ship, versus the highest in-game shield HP, which is 774,000, and that is for a non-military ship. Let's do some quick math. 774,000 is larger than 364,000. Yep, that checks out. But let's take it a step further, a big step forward, and double that hull HP. 364 plus 364 is 728. Let's do some quick math. Yep, 774 is larger than 728. Not to mention that 774,000, that regenerates at 2200 HP per second. Now class, raise your hand if you think the Perseus will have double, that's right, I said double the HP of a Retaliator. No takers? Well, how about the Perseus having more than double the HP of the Hammerhead? That's 2.6 times the HP to be exact. Now class, don't forget the Hammerhead is at least 375 cubic meters larger than the Perseus, and it costs $50 more than the Perseus. Still no takers? That's smart, because if this was the schoolyard and this was rock, paper, scissors, methinks hull HP equals rock and shield equals paper, as in better defensive coverage. But let's assume it does come with 728,000 hull HP. Let's assume the Perseus comes with that much hull HP. You might be saying, well, you have to add in the large shield pool for the Perseus. I'll say back, well, then I'd have to add in the hull HP for the Polaris. And we don't have either of those because we don't know what shields the Perseus comes with, and we don't know what the hull HP will be for the Polaris. We also don't know what the hull HP will be for the Perseus, but I'm assuming the best hull HP we've ever seen. But let's take a stab at it anyway. Let's take the best large military grade A shield in game right now, the FR-86, which has 115,000 HP, and assume the Perseus comes with it included. Now this is a grade A military shield, and we're gonna assume the Perseus comes with it standard. It won't, but let's assume it does for the sake of this thought experiment. That brings the total from 728, remember the 728 is the hull HP that we're assuming the Perseus has, and then we're adding the shield HP. So 115,000, which is the shield HP, to the 728, which is the hull HP. Surely that That is larger than 774. 843. Yep, that's larger. Now let's take, on the Polaris side, the hull HP from an in-game ship similar to the size of the Polaris, and we'll go non-military just for good measure. The Reclaimer has 89,000 hull HP. Yeah, let's assume that the Polaris, a sub-capital military corvette, will only have 89,000 hull HP, and then let's add that to the 774 from the capital shield. That is 863. Let's do our math again. Yep, 863 is higher than the 843 that we just did for the Perseus. And just to be thorough, the Perseus shield regens at 1,440 HP per second, and the cap shield on the Polaris regens at 2,240 HP per second. Okay, we can end the thought experiment now. It should be clear that the Polaris will be the better defensive ship of these two. The offensive discussion requires considerably easier math, but the defensive discussion, you can see why I had to add that up. But no, it is not a clear win for the Perseus as far as defense. If anybody thought that, give me your numbers. I would love to hear them in the comments below. The Perseus is no slouch on weapons though. 20 size 5 missiles and 2 size 7 weapons means see you later to anything medium or large. 2 size 3 ballistic Gatlings will surely stave off at least a light fighter or two. However, with a capital H, the Polaris has 28 size 10 torps. They will kill any large ship and any cap ship easy. It has 32 size 2 missiles. Bye-bye light fighters. It has 6 size 4 turrets and a size 5. Deuces medium fighters. It kills everything. The Perseus will have a tough time with cap ships, and if there are more than 2 light fighters, it will take an excellent crew to keep up. Even with only 6 crew, it will be difficult to lose a fight to anything in the Polaris. You just send 4 people to whatever weapon is best for the situation. My second to last point is a short discussion about cargo. People right now who are playing combat roles in Star Citizen are realizing that the real money isn't in just killing bounties. It's taking their cargo afterward and selling it. As of 3.22 prices, the Perseus can take 50 SCU of Weevil eggs to make about 7 million. The Polaris, 216 SCU of Weevil eggs and would make about 200 million. If we get back to our math, with a crew of 6, would you rather have a little over $1 million for a bonus or a little over 33 million? That's all I have to say about that. My final point, and this is perhaps the biggest point, why the heck do we compare these ships? The only in-game or publicly planned ships this Perseus should be compared to are the Hammerhead and the Nautilus. My guess is the reason we compare the Polaris and the Perseus is because the other two I just mentioned are so clearly for a different purpose. The Hammerhead is meant to be able to kill anything with a size small or a size medium, regardless of the type of ship it is. The Nautilus has those size 7 guns, sure, but its clear primary purpose is to be a mine layer and simply defend against other ships rather than attack. Both the Polaris and the Perseus are fleet support ship killers that are meant to kill everything. Well, with the exception of the Perseus struggling with the cap ships and swarms of light fighters. But if you need to fight anything but a cap ship and prefer guns to torps, get the Perseus. If you prefer torps and may occasionally need to fight a cap ship or a swarm of fighters, get a Polaris. I mean, I get the role, fleet support, ship killers. That's why we compare them. At least that should be why we compare them. But in reality, the Perseus should be talked about more as either a step in an upgrade path to getting a Polaris, or as an in-game ship that is best paired with a capital ship that can fend off other capital ships but has trouble with smaller targets. The Polaris should be talked about as a base of operations for a combat-oriented org, or as a ship hunter, or as a defender for a capital ship, regardless of the weaponry on that capital ship. Get a Perseus if all you want to do is go out, fight, and come home. Get a Polaris if you want a mobile base. Get a Perseus if you want to fly right at ships and dare them not to move. Get a Polaris if you want to shoot things before they even know you exist. Get a Perseus if you're more afraid of ballistics. Get a Polaris if you're more afraid of energy weapons. I could keep going, but I'd rather do that in the comments. I would ask everyone to stop comparing these ships because I don't think they're meant to be compared, but I know you will anyway. Hopefully, if this doesn't settle the debate for you, this at least pushes the comparison conversation forward because we need new things to talk about, people. Even if it's the same 2 ships, we need to compare them in a different way. Go ahead and send that comment you just typed up. I'm ready for it. That's it for this one. Peace.